There was a guy named Ray Kroc, ended up franchising McDonald's all around the world. He, one time in his life, in his business career, started out, he's selling milkshake blenders, okay? Not single units, milkshake blenders that could blend 5 milkshakes at a time. And he would get in his car without air conditioning, drive across the Midwest and the western part of the United States, and he would frequent upon drive-ins. How many of you met in a drive-in? One person. Okay, so he would go to these drive-ins and he would try to sell these milkshake blenders. He'd give the pitch, he was a salesman of all salesmen, and actually nobody wanted one. So he'd carry and schlep this thing back into his trunk, get it in his trunk, sit in the car, keep sweating, and drive on to the next drive-in. At night, he'd get in some seedy hotel and he'd sit there, pull out a portable record player, and he'd put an album on of positive thinking about sales. And he'd listen to it all night long, and he'd get up and try to sell more blenders in the morning. One day, he called the home office for messages, and they said, well, yeah, we do have an order here for 6 milkshake blenders. And he goes, well, that's obviously a mistake. He says, I'll give him a call. I'll get that straightened out. The establishment was in San Bernardino, California. He called them, and he says, yeah, I'm calling about this order. I want to get this straightened out. I understand you ordered 6 milkshake blenders. And they said, no, actually, that's wrong. And he goes, well, I thought so. We'd actually like 8. And this got his attention. He thought to himself, who would need to make 40 milkshakes at one time? So he got in his car, skipped the next drive-in, and drove to San Bernardino, California, stood in front of that McDonald's, in which there was a line of people waiting to buy a 15-cent hamburger, a milkshake, and some fries. He got in the line himself, got up to the window. He says, okay, I'll have a hamburger, a milkshake, and some fries. Pimply-faced kid at the counter turned around, grabbed a bag, handed it to him, put the drink down, and he says, what's this? He says, that's your order. He goes, what do you mean it's my order? I just ordered. He goes, yeah, that's your order. He goes, that's my order. He said, yeah. So he said, where am I going to eat it? And the kid says, I don't know, you can go to the park and eat it, or you could go home or sit in your car, sit on the bench. You can eat it anywhere you want to eat it, but that's your order. So he kind of, bewildered by the whole experience, picked up his stuff, went and sat on the bench, and a mother and her 2 little daughters sat down next to him, and he ate his burger. A man sweeping up the parking lot in front of him turned out to be the owner of the McDonald's. He says, what's going on here? Why are so many people in line to buy these burgers? He goes, I want to take you out to dinner, and I want to hear your story. Can I take you out to dinner so I can hear your story? And the guy said, sure. So they went out to dinner. He said, tell me your story. He says, well, we went to drive-ins all across the country, and it wasn't very family-oriented. I mean, there was kind of like an element in the community that hung out at the diner, or the drive-ins, and families really wanted to go there. It took too long to get your food. They had too many different things going on. It was never hard, or they got the order wrong. He goes, well, I know all about that. He says, well, we opened up and we tried to provide fast food, and frankly, it didn't work, so we had to close up. We closed up for 6 months. I took our entire staff out to a tennis court with a bunch of chalk, and I diagrammed out, they said, we diagrammed out every aspect of the kitchen, where the fries are, where the burgers are, where the milkshakes are, where all the prep work is, the ketchup and the mustard and the 2 pickles. He says, we choreographed how every employee would work together within that space to provide fast food that was both tasty and convenient. So it took us 3 times. Finally, I sat up on a ladder and I looked down and I could see my whole staff moving like a ballet, orchestrating every move. We were reopened, and we've been going like gangbusters since. Ray Kroc finally talked him into franchising, but it was at that moment when he stood at that counter and he ordered that 15-cent hamburger. He didn't know what was going on. The kid didn't know what was going on. The owners of the McDonald's didn't know what was going on. But the paradigm of our culture, not only our culture, the culture of every culture in the world, shifted right then and there. An inevitable paradigm shift took place in that moment when Ray Kroc ordered that burger and got it within seconds. And that is the paradigm that is now throughout and permeate every culture, the paradigm of instant gratification. The inevitability of Hardee's, Arby's, and Wendy's. The inevitability of every culture being taught from the time they're toddlers up to want something and to expect it immediately. As Paul Hilliard in our men's group said last Tuesday, the only problem with instant gratification is that it's way too slow. And he's right. We are a culture that operates in a paradigm of instant gratification in every sense of the word. We literally have generations that have absolutely no idea what it means to wait on something. I remember when my dad worked for Chrysler, his boss was Lee Iacocca. He got promoted all the time. He was really good at what he did, and we moved a lot. But every once in a while, for doing something really good, he'd get these prize points. And he would say to me, son, you can take these prize points, get in this catalog, and you can order something that you want. You want a new golf bag and a new golf clubs? You can actually go in there, use my points, and they'll send it to the house. I said, fantastic. So I ordered my first golf bag, my first set of golf clubs with the prize points my dad made by doing a really good job at work. Got on the rotary dial telephone, called up some person that didn't live in India, that I talked to for a while. I ordered it, and I thought, this is great. So I went outside, and I stood at the curb the next day waiting for the golf clubs. 6 weeks later. I think I had skipped a grade by this time. Old Big Brown came around the corner at 141 West Case Drive. Big Brown came around the corner, opened up the back of that truck, and gave birth to a brand new set of golf clubs 6 weeks later. I thought to myself the other day, my goodness gracious. If I ordered those same golf clubs tomorrow afternoon, before I hit send, I wouldn't be surprised to see some dude coming down my driveway with the golf clubs. Instant gratification. Now, it's in that context that we go to our message today. 1 Corinthians 13:4, love is patient. You already see we have a problem here. You already see we're up against it. We're swimming upstream already. Love is patient. All right, let's recap. Eros love. Now you say to yourself, you're going to give me the definitions of 3 Greek words 2,100 years ago, and you're expecting me to think that each of those words is going to make a difference in my life. Yes, I'm not here to talk to you about some sort of theological platitude or some debatable theological issue or the existence of God. I'm giving you something today that's going to change your life this week, if applied. Love is patience. Okay, 3 words for love. Phileo, band of brothers, mutual respect, friendship, abiding confidence, trustworthiness, 2 people. Sisterly love, brotherly love. We all need that. We all need more of it. Band of brothers, first Monday night in June. Be there. Now, phileo love is great. Eros love. Here's where we have a problem. The entire ancient Near East in the time of the Bible is using the word eros for love, and it's the most used word for love, and it's actually not even in the New Testament. Does that tell you something? It's the most commonly used word for love, and it's nowhere in the New Testament, which is a book of love. So let's take note of that. Eros love was so prevalent, so predominant, so pervasive in culture, but it wasn't in the New Testament. Interesting. There was another word for love, agape love, that was hidden in the A's of the Greek dictionary, sitting on a shelf somewhere, and nobody used it. All of a sudden, Jesus comes on the scene, and he's starting to talk about love. Love this, love that, love God, love your neighbor, love, yada, yada. But he's not using eros. What's he using? Agape. Agape love. People are saying, what's agape love? I don't know what that means. It's not eros. Now, what is eros? Eros says, I desire. Eros says, I need. Eros says, I, me, mine. Eros says, I will reach up and get from you what I need to fill a void within my life. We'll call it love. I'll be the benefactor of it. I'll probably gain more out of the relationship than you will, but I do love you. I love you with a eros love. Eros takes, agape gives. All right, we're going to talk a lot about marriages this morning. Eros discriminates. Eros has a caste system about it, an evaluation program going on where some people are worthy of more love than others. Religion is eros love. Dead religion that does nothing in a person's life usually is based on eros love. Eros love looks good, sounds good, and we say it all the time. I wonder, friend, I wonder. If we really knew how many times we say, I love you, if we really understood how many times was eros and how often it is agape. That, my friend, is an important question. Are you competitive? I know I am. I am competitive. One of you sent me this text this week. So the takeaway from last week is this: a marriage should be a competition between two people trying to love the other more. Yeah, I like it. Give, sacrifice, love, no strings attached, unconditional. You channel love to your partner, and they channel love back. Agape. Now, love is patient. What do we do with this? Two kinds of the word patient that are used in the New Testament. One has to do with circumstances. I'll give you an example. Of course, it's never happened to me. It probably happened to you. I don't know. I would never do this. But you get frustrated behind someone from Florida in the middle of this season driving 25 miles an hour on a mountain road. I don't know. It probably never happened. It's never happened to me. But I'm supposing it could happen to you. That's a circumstance for which patience is needed. And boy, a lot of it. A circumstance. Your life's fallen apart. You got financial issues. You got some issue with some kind of circumstance at work. There's a word for patience for that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a word for patience now that has to do with relationships only. Agape is patient. What about patience in the context of a relationship? That's what he's talking about right here. Patience with people. Here's a story written in a devotion book by Thomas Lindbergh. According to a traditional Hebrew story, Abraham was sitting outside his tent one evening when he saw an old man, weary from age and journey, coming toward him. Abraham rushed out, greeted him, and then invited him into his tent. There he washed the old man's feet and gave him food and drink. The old man immediately began eating without saying any prayer or blessing, so Abraham asked him, "Do you worship God?" The old traveler replied, "I worship fire and reverence no other God." When he heard this, Abraham became incensed, grabbed the old man by the shoulders and threw him out of his tent into the cold night air. It's brutal. When the old man had departed, God called to his friend Abraham and asked them about the stranger that was there. Abraham replied, "I forced him out because he did not worship you." And God answered, "I have suffered him these 80 years, although he dishonors me. Could you not endure him one night?" Love is patient. Love is patient. You King James people, love is long-suffering. Love suffers long. Love bears up. Love bears suffering. What is this? This is unique to the Christian faith. This is supposed to be a dichotomy to the secular eros love that we see in our life. Are you loving with an agape love, or are you loving with an eros love? Did you marry in an eros love, or did you marry in an agape love? Did you marry in an eros love and then soon mature and grow into an agape love? Interesting. What is this agape love of which Jesus speaks? Well, here's what I want to say about it. Longevity versus short term. Eros love, where we get the word erotic, possessions, manipulation, usury. That's the worst part of eros love. The best part of it is it looks good, people get along, they love each other, but when circumstances in life intensify, when trouble comes, is the relationship healthy enough to withstand the circumstances? And is there a love between those two people beyond an eros love to help them navigate those storms? That's interesting. There comes a time in a relationship, inevitably, over longevity, just longevity alone sort of necessitates the need to be tested in that relationship by a circumstance, be it relational, health, financial, whatever. Is the love deep enough to endure the circumstance? Is the patience with one another there? The mutual give, sacrificial giving rather than I need I need to endure the pain, long-suffering. Agape love is longevity versus short-term. Most of our marriages that don't make it were rooted and established in an eros love that was not intended to be sufficient enough to withstand longevity because of an absence of unconditional agape love. The love was too discriminatory, too conditional, had too many strings attached. And when the storms came, and when the winds blew, and when the earthquake came, it shattered. It looked good, it looked healthy, it looked right. But it just didn't withstand the storm. It wasn't built on the foundation of agape love. To be long in spirit, long-spirited, not to lose heart. This is a part of agape love. Agape is more like a long, graceful drive off the tee than a choppy wedge near the green. It's I'm here to stay. I'm here to make progress. I'm here to move. I'm in it to win it. Marriage vows, if you look at marriage vows and you look at them real closely and listen to them, it is assumed that there's an agape love between those two people. The marriage vow would be nothing but a joke. This is why I won't do everybody's wedding. It would be a joke to have two people who love each other with an eros love and ask them to make some sort of vow that they're ill-equipped to fulfill without God's love. And this is the state of our culture. The state of our culture is such that we're learning, are we not? I hope we are. We're learning that eros love isn't sufficient. Agape love is for the long haul because it's the only thing that's going to get us there. The second thing about agape love is that it is giving over getting. To persevere patiently and bravely in enduring the misfortune and troubles of life while giving to the other. Here's something I got to be mindful of. I don't know if you've noticed this or not. I'm probably more public than my wife. Have you noticed that? I'm more public. What does that mean? That means it takes me longer to get a pint of Ben & Jerry's at Ingles than most people because there's 10 people I'm going to stop and talk to. That's why I'm there at 3 a.m. Just kidding. My calling on my life, my vocation has the potential to overshadow my wife. It has the potential for her to have to sacrifice something on my behalf, on our behalf. It's true of a vocational minister's family. There are certain things that the family tends getting caught up in that make a sacrifice to. I have to be mindful of the fact that things can come up on the radar that maybe should not be about me and the church and the ministry. That's agape love. That's affording the other person the opportunities that they deserve as a person that would otherwise be taken away. Now, we can fight over, who's going to sacrifice more, but I have to be mindful of that. We all have to be mindful of that. Some of you traveled long months, weeks in business. This happens all the time. When things get out of skew, out of balance, we have to look at, are we allowing one another the opportunity to grow? See, agape love gives the other the opportunity. And it's not jealous or envious of it. It's not threatened by it. But lovingly affords the other person the opportunity to grow and experience their calling, their life, their dreams. Oftentimes they're one and the same. Great, but they're not always. This is part of what it's about. Long-suffering and giving over getting is probably a lot to do with caregiving. When my grandmother was in the late stages of Alzheimer's and sundowner syndrome, I watched my parents, I watched my mom comb her hair in the afternoon and rub her neck and her feet, and there was no mutual appreciation. There was not even a recognition of who was doing it. I saw my parents, take turns taking my grandmother to the bathroom. I see this in the church today. I see people I'm looking at even now who, for months, if not years, tended to and cared for their spouse as they were sick, in sickness and in health. Even this week, I found out that one of you has found out that your wife has cancer in her left lung. It sets a whole new stage, a whole new direction for eros or agape love. It is a choice. It is now a choice. Agape love takes a bad situation, a really bad one, and makes a choice. And that choice is, I am in this situation going to love sacrificially in a manner that glorifies God and loves sacrificially, giving not to get, giving to someone who cannot give back, the agape love of God in sickness and in health, for richer and for poor. This is agape. This is what everyone's looking for. But we settle for eros because of the emptiness that we have inside, because of the fall of man. There isn't a person breathing in and breathing out today who isn't desirous some sort of affirming eros love, some significance, something. Young ladies, let me tell you something. You want to get married in life? You can find yourself a boy, and you can get into some serious eros love. But what you ought to be looking for is the agape love in that young man. The godliness, the desire to sacrificially give himself to the relationship. Laura Lynn Rustoven, Susan Pugsley, Ginger Arnold, Hilda James, Gloria Cook. I could go on and on and on. I'm even hesitant to even say the names for fear I'll forget another 10. Caring for their loved ones. Caring for their loved ones. That's agape love. Longevity versus short term, giving over getting, and commitment over feelings. The person who walks in an agape love has feelings, but they understand they need to be mild and slow and not a vengeful feeling. Slow to anger, slow to punish, slow to judge. This is one thing I've become more and more tuned to as I grow in Christ. As I get in these counseling situations, some of the most unbelievable counseling sessions I've ever imagined could take place here. And it softens my heart to see that the more I'm in tune with my own weakness as a person, the older I get, the more in tune I am with my own weaknesses, and the more I acknowledge them, even verbalize them, even ask for forgiveness for them, the less hardened I am toward people who are struggling in other areas. Like we said Tuesday morning, guys, there's not one single human being in this place that's not capable of doing anything at any moment. Agape love understands that. Agape love doesn't stand in judgment until it's time to stand in judgment. Let's get to that. In Jeremiah 3, God, through an hyperbole, makes the statement that he's going to divorce Israel. What? This is crazy. Take Pharaoh, for instance. God and Pharaoh, for almost 1 year, God tried to soften Pharaoh's heart. He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't relent. Finally, God says, all right, I'll harden my own heart. You're on your own, pal. There is long suffering in agape love. There is enduring patience in agape love. But it reaches the point where the battered wife from the alcoholic husband can no longer endure and makes a decision that I'm out. That's still agape love. That's still agape love. But you make that decision in agape love, not eros love. There are opportunities for people to say, I can no longer love God and sacrifice my own well-being because I can't love other people now as I love myself because I have now allowed myself to be hurt so bad, so often. And God demonstrates that. But we have commitment beyond our feelings. Eventually, we can't ignore our feelings, and eventually we have to make a decision. This, too, is agape love. So I ask you this question. Do you understand the agape love of Jesus? Let me give you some examples. To wash Judas's feet, be willing to do so. To take the bread and dip it in the cup, which is a significant symbol of honor, and give it to Judas, who's about to betray him and have him arrested. To hang on a cross and say, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. This love is radical. This love is transformative. This love is, well, you answer the question. Is this love what you mean when you say, I love you? That's a fair question. What are we called to walk in? Eros or agape? Love is patient. All right, what's the problem with love is patient? Well, here's a problem with it. Love is a fruit of the Spirit. It's not a person. Love is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness. It's how does love be patient? Patient is actually a fruit of the Spirit. How does one fruit of the Spirit be another fruit of the Spirit? I don't think love is a person, but yet it is. What he's saying here is, let me give you a resume of Jesus Christ himself. God, 1 John 4:16, is love. Jesus is patient. That's what he's saying. To this church that was so excited about their spiritual gifts and their charismania, and they were so jacked up about their worship services, but had no love. He says, love is patient. Love is kind. Love is a person. You know, here's the thing to think about. If you're sitting in this room today and your relationship is a wreck, your life is a wreck in some way, shape, or form. One aspect is a wreck. Ask yourself this question. What kind of love are you operating in? Fleeting, temporary, conditional, discriminatory, self-centered? Because if that's the kind of love you're operating in, I can guarantee you 100% it's not going to work out. I didn't say you weren't going to stay together. You can stay together, but it still not work out. The goal is not staying together. The goal is having a life and life more abundantly. The goal is not being a conqueror, but more than a conqueror. The goal is to take the opportunity you have on this earth and maximize love as a Christian. Enjoy life, laugh, carry on. Vacation, set goals, be blessed, bless others. The whole ball of wax is wrapped up in agape love. Agape love. Where are we coming from? So I want to challenge you this week to be very selective of how you use the word love, particularly with those to whom you would sacrifice, die for, in those situations where you're more concerned about the liberty and the well-being of the other than you are yourself, then use agape. Use agape. And it tells the person who's receiving that you actually thought it through, and you mean something different than you said every other time, which is, I love you, which could be or could not be. I don't know. And maybe they don't either. I'm talking about something more than two people growing old together. I'm talking about something more than 50 years of marriage. It is that, but it's more. It's agape. Now, when you're in a relationship with someone and you're unequally yoked and they don't have the wherewithal to love you with that kind of love that you can only get from God, now you ask yourself the question, how do I necessitate and facilitate that relationship? You really have to be in tune with the Lord to know how to do that. There's a lot at stake there. It's huge. How are you loving other people? Let's add weight to the word for the first time in a long time. Now, if you're not married and want to do that exercise with someone else, ask yourself this question. When you say, Lord, I love you, what do you mean? Is that something you say out of sort of obligation? Duty? It's religious, it's good. Do you say it out of an eros, I love you because you do this for me? Or do you do it out of, actually, my life is not my own and I belong to you, and whatever you want me to do, I'm here for you to do it, and I'm not here to get anything from you. I'm here to give myself to you. I'm here to pick up my cross daily, deny myself, and follow Christ. I'm here to follow you wherever you want me to go. I'm here to boldly proclaim what you want me to proclaim. I agape you, Lord. I agape you. That's different now. Now we've made a dichotomy between What can be sort of confusing, I'm not really sure what you mean. Do you love? I love you, Lord, with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's agape. To put yourself second in a relationship for the benefit of another. Agape. One of my closest friends at the time, sitting in a room, his wife, my wife, and the two of us. The doctors had just given the order. He was willing to give up part of his body for our 3-year-old little boy. Agape. Agape. Pure and simple. You might have married in eros, but you need to grow in agape. There must be in a relationship of a husband and wife, each person having access to this kind of love that may be dispensed and allocated to the other in the relationship, and it has to come from God. Listen, we live in a day and age when too many people have been hurt, abused, wronged. Too many people have grown up being taught to love with an eros love. People have spent 30 years of their life, 20, 25 years of their life being taught what eros love is from their parents, and all of a sudden they're now introduced to this thing called marriage, and what does that look like? I'm not really sure. It requires and necessitates long-suffering, patience, slow to anger. Don't be vengeful. Allow people time to grow and to heal and nurture them and minister to them. And look the other way at times when you're the most agitated. Compromise. Agape. Oh, by the way, all the things that God does with you and me on a daily basis. Don't you think he looks at me and says, man, I just have to take into consideration where this guy came from. You know, if you're going to put up a resume of people to hire for the kingdom of God, it wasn't me. He looked at me one day and said, man, that guy is pitiful. I don't think I've seen anyone that pitiful lately. Look at that guy. Everybody's looking over. Look at that guy. He's pitiful. And I stood on an altar like this, and I gave my heart to Christ, and they said, all right, boys, let's go to work. It's about him. It's about him. It's about him, himself, me, myself, and I. Let's start to put some us and our in him. Let's let him know that we made him in our image. We have a plan for his life. Let's get him out of that eros love, that attention-getting, self-seeking, me at the center of the universe love, and let's give him something that he can work with and that we can work through him. Agape. Love is patient.